Good morning, Britain. It's Alora, and today we're going to be talking about kind of politics, a little bit of the March for Science, mostly making sure that your actions line up with what you believe. WogsVlogs, yeah! I made notes in my notebook. That's how you know this is a legit video, because Alora made notes. I planned ahead and everything. This video is inspired by 3 different things. First one being the blog post Dad posted today. I'll link in the description. It's very good, quite eloquent. Second thing being the March for Science that happened on Saturday. And the third thing being one of the videos Lena Norms posted during her 40 days of questions. I don't remember which one. If I find it, I'll link in the description, but I make no promises that it will be there. Okay, so when you do an action that does not match up with your moral code, or your beliefs or whatever, it creates cognitive dissonance, which you can combat in one of 2 ways. You either change the action so that it aligns with your moral code, or you explain it away in some way. So things that line up with my moral code that I do: volunteering, donating to charity, turning off the lights when I leave the room and when I go to work, arguing for equality on the internet and offline, participating in political marches like the Science March, voting, and buying cruelty-free makeup, skincare, whatever, you know. Things like that are things that I believe in, and so I put my actions and money where my mouth is and do those things. There are also some things that I do that create cognitive dissonance that I have explained away in a number of ways that I'm working on fixing so that the actions do line up with my values. These things include not recycling, even though I'm pretty sure I can very easily at my community, and I just haven't figured out how yet. Not calling my representatives about important issues that I care about. Anxiety, my dude. Not donating to charities that I care about when I could. The guilt. The guilt. Also, participating in political marches. Marches are things that are a bit more complex, and we're going to discuss those in a minute when I'm done talking about this. Shopping at Walmart on occasion. Walmart, I kind of despise them as a company. And so, but sometimes I still shop there, which is not great. I've been pretty good. I haven't shopped there in like a year, but I know it will probably happen again in the future. Sometimes I'm really embarrassed about this, but I don't always tip very well, even though I believe that you should, no matter the service. I don't ever tip nothing though. I did that at school, and I don't do that anymore. As you can see, I am now blushing, red-faced, and sweaty because I'm embarrassed and ashamed that these actions that I do don't line up with my moral code. Now we're going to talk about the Science March. Marches like the Science March that was this weekend, the Tax March that was last weekend. This weekend there's the People's Climate March, and then the march that started this wave of marches was the Women's March. I went to the Women's March and I went to the March for Science. The thing about marches is that in order for them to work, a lot of people have to show up. And the purpose of a march is to get media attention and to get the attention of the world or the country or the place that you're in so that they will listen to you and so that your voice as a collective can be heard. Which is why I showed up to the Women's March, because I was like, hey, I believe in equality. Everybody should be equal. And that was one of the main goals of the Women's March. And that was also the reason I showed up for the Science March, because I think that policy should be driven based on science and facts, and that science is too often being disregarded in our current society. But just because I feel that way and I'm at the march doesn't mean that everybody else at the march feels that way. And there will be people that I disagree with at the march, no matter what. But the reason to go to the marches that I went to the marches was because it's a way for me to get my voice heard and for me to amplify the voices of others, because lots of people showing up in one spot for something they care about is very useful. This has been seen throughout history. The women's marches on Washington for the vote, and I think there was another one for ERA, but I'm not positive. Also marches during the Civil Rights Movement to end segregation. The issue here is that because there are so many people with so many different views on one subject showing up to the march to support it, people don't know where to go from there, and the march doesn't necessarily have a clear message. That was a lot of the issues and things with the Women's March immediately after it ended, because people were like, okay, cool, we showed up. what do we do now? The March for Science has a week of action or whatever that they're doing of things that you can do to continue to promote science in the week after the march. But the issue is there are differing goals. Marches in the past have had a very clear goal. So the goal is to end segregation. The goal is to get women the vote. And that is very, very helpful in getting a social movement to work. But there isn't a clear goal. There isn't an easy way to convince a bunch of people we need to do this one specific thing that everybody can agree on. And that is what makes movements today much more difficult than the movements of the past. Because everybody can make their voice be heard, there are so many issues and everything that needs supporting, and it is much more difficult to unite everyone for one issue. Especially when a lot of these issues are issues that minorities are facing, like transgender bathroom rights, Black Lives Matter. These are issues that are important and that we need to fight for, but it's a lot more difficult to convince people to do it. I understand, as an intelligent human, that walking around a park on a Saturday afternoon with a bunch of signs and thousands of other people isn't going to change much or anything at all. But it allows the people there to feel like their voice is being heard, to feel empowered to go and do more things in their community to make their world a better place. And it allows the voice of the movement to be amplified and heard by the leaders and the people in charge. Most important is what you do after a march. Women's March, I looked up how to volunteer, specifically environmental volunteering in my community. A meetup group on Meetup that does some volunteering. We did a volunteering thing a couple Saturdays ago where we went to the Atlanta Community Food Bank and we volunteered. And then there's also Parks website. It's pretty good for finding volunteering specifically for state parks. Britt and I were actually going to volunteer the morning before the march on Saturday, but we were just too tired. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to go volunteer Thursday night, next Thursday. I'll leave you with this. Plaguing our world will not be solved by political marches. Instead, they will be solved by continued political actions in accordance with the beliefs of the dedicated. So, this may be people you disagree with, in which case you need to become one of the dedicated. Slowly working to become a dedicated civil servant, and that I do my absolute best to make sure country and my community is the best that I can possibly make it with the resources available to me. And part of that is making this video, Britain. Part of that is sharing everything that I believe in with the world and making my voice heard. Also, you know, volunteering and donating to causes I care about. The video I posted last week for some great ways to donate to charity for free without actually spending of your own money if you're poor people, and also just, you know, don't have that much money to spend. You can still donate money that way. That's all from me today. I have talked for far too long and I don't think this is going to be very fun to edit, but I love you very, very much and I will see you on Wednesday. Everybody. Also, this is my snazzy jacket and my shirt until right now. I'm wearing my Wizard Activist shirt for the Harry Potter Alliance, which is one of the charities that I donate to often and I love very, very much because they do wonderful, wonderful things. So